Hello, writers. Come write with me. My name is Mykela Greenwood. I create worlds for mind adventures. Welcome to my channel, Write with Mykela. I'm excited to have you here on my channel, so don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the bell so you can go on this journey with me. And for this video, it has been a journey for me. I tried to film this video and then I thought, oh, I don't have the sound. So I tried to push a button on my phone, which was a mistake. I didn't know. And it cut off the video. And then it restarted the video. And so it was like in pieces. So then I tried it again. And of course, sometimes there's always a second take because I mess up what I say or something, or I cough or whatever. And so now I'm into like the third take, and I'm reading along and things seem to be going fine. And then I get to the story part. And I'm like, I've already read this. I've already done this part of the story. So I realized I was on the wrong script. So I had to stop, get on the right script. Then, and the vocabulary words that day were moot and mute. And I was having fun with the vocabulary, and I had gone off script a couple times. So I don't know that y'all got all that content because those videos have now been deleted. Anyway, I got on the right script, and then my phone decided it was out of battery. So in the middle of that one, or after I just read the one vocabulary word, the phone stopped. So here we are, and my phone is charged, and hopefully we will make it through this video. Today we're going to discuss some terms or ideas, and then we will add to a down soldier. The first word that we are looking at today is immunity. Immunity as a noun means the state or quality of being resistant to a particular infectious disease or pathogen. I know, like today it sounds like I'm sick or I don't have the immunity that I need, but it's actually I have a lot of allergies, and so that's what this is. I went to work yesterday, and they were working on the building with like a jackhammer and drills and all kinds of stuff, and our sink in our office has been filled and they haven't taken care of it for 3 weeks, so lots of allergies. So that's what's going on with me. So that's not necessarily my immunity. I'm not immune to certain allergens, but I'm immune to a lot of diseases. A second definition is protection or exemption from something, especially an obligation or penalty. This definition, the second definition, is also present in law. And in law, it specifically means officially granted exemption from legal proceedings or liability or the lack of suspectability, especially to something unwelcome or harmful. For a real life example, a recent example, the pharmaceutical companies that produced the mRNA COVID vaccines were given immunity from governments around the world so that people couldn't sue them against the side effects. Everybody's wanting the vaccine so fast, so they gave them immunity without all the tests. So the company's like, we can't normally do that without 18 months, and the government's like, we need it. So they got immunity, and nobody can sue them for any side effects at all. So you can agree with this immunity or not, but we're not discussing politics here or what the government should have done. We're discussing stories, and the definition said granted exemption from legal proceedings or liabilities. So for writing, this is an example of that. We take real life and use it as an example. Now, for an example of the first definition of being resistant to a particular disease or pathogen, think about the movie I Am Legend and Will Smith. Will Smith stayed in New York City, or what they called Ground Zero, and he was researching to find a cure for the zombies. And the reason he was able to do this, was because he had immunity to the disease or the pathogen. He didn't catch it. It was like an airborne disease. I think at first it started like they were trying to cure cancer and they were giving people shots for the cancer. And then they got this disease and became zombies. But then I think it became airborne after that. I'm not sure. You'd have to go watch the movie. Or I'd have to go watch it again. Now, so he was immune. He got to stay. How can we use these definitions in our stories? I think there are other movies where immunity against a disease or pathogen is used. Google lists Dawn of the Dead, 28 Days Later, I Am Legend, Outbreak, Contagion, and several more. Actually, I think they had a list of 50. And some of these I've never heard of. Maybe you have. It was concerning a disease and some people were immune. In our stories, someone should survive whatever disease, and probably in these movies they did too. Survive whatever disease or virus that breaks out. If everyone died, there would be no story, right? Okay, there's a disease, everyone dies, end of humanity, done. Short story, tragedy. So, in some stories, that will be immunity, right? And other stories, it will be like a solid separation, which is hard. With, if you're going to separate, then you still need supplies. You still need food. You still need water. You still need, and if that stuff has to come in, then you have to get it in somehow. And if you can get food in, then the disease might mutate and attach to the food, or it might, some person could slip in with the food. Or so solid separation is really, really a hard concept. I guess if you were writing like planets, then if you were flying around in galaxies or across planets and you found a group of people that had the disease on a planet, then you could say no flights off of the planet. Nobody could go. Maybe they could grow their food and water on that planet like they used to do, but just nobody ever visits that planet anymore until everybody on that planet dies or what have you. I guess you could write like that. So, but it would be harder. Now, with immunity, how long will the immunity last? Is immunity forever, or is there a breaking point? I've known people in real life who could eat shrimp, no problem. They had no trouble, and then suddenly, boom, they become allergic, like EpiPen allergic, like swelling up of their throat to where they couldn't breathe and all that kind of stuff. So they ate shrimp, they didn't have any problem. Then suddenly, boom. So the same could be true for immunity. Like you're immune, and then all of a sudden and I think that's what happened with my allergies. I wasn't allergic, and then I've lived here in the Houston, Texas area too long. And I've got all these allergies now. So, my system broke. In our stories, is there some cure for those who aren't immune? I remember an episode of Stargate where there was a planet, and I don't think it rotated like we normally do. So there was a dark side of the planet and a light side of the planet. And on the dark side of the planet is where the people with the disease lived. And I guess that's where they caught it or something too. And the disease regressed the people back to like caveman days, including grunts. Whatever. I can't do the grunts. Instead of speech. They had no speech left. Well, Jack O'Neill, of course, caught the disease. And the Stargate doctor found a cure which, not to spoil things, but I think they went back to the planet and offered the cure. And I think there was some issue too with, they didn't want people to take their blood. So the doctor, I don't think she could test on them. Maybe they talked with them and got them to let them test. But anyway, you watch the Stargate and see. But they got the cure because she was testing Jack, and at one point, Jack, instead of grunting, he was able to say, "Help me." And the doctor's like, "What'd you say?" Say, So at that point, she got hope, and she was able to cure the disease. But because they were able to test his blood, they were able to find out what the disease was doing to them and stuff like that. And I don't remember. You'd have to go watch the show. And I don't know that much medical stuff and stuff. So anyway, now a twist, as writers, we can find or create cures, but could people be immune to the cure? Meaning the cure doesn't help everyone? Yes, of course. We are writers. And what we imagine, we write. When we can imagine it happen, it can write. So you can be immune to the disease or you can be immune to the cure, whichever way. Leave a comment on your own immunity. You get sick every time someone sneezes. Do you rarely get sick? I rarely get sick, like with flu or the cold or something like that. But many medicines don't work for me as they're supposed to. And instead of curing me, I get the possible side effects. So, it's hard. Sometimes I read the side effects of the medicine. I'm just like, I can't take that because I know I'm getting the side effects. So, leave another comment on if medicines help you. Are you immune? Do you catch everything? Are you pretty healthy? Or do medicines not work for you? Like you go in, like when I had my wisdom teeth removed, they gave me the shot to numb everything. And I'm like, I can still feel you. I can still feel you. And so they're like, we've already doubled the dose. We can't give you any more. And at that point, I didn't feel pain necessarily, but I could still feel them working and everything. So that, it's not good if you're trying to get a painkiller and it doesn't work. As for the second definition, okay, remember that's the one where you're not responsible for your actions, not legally held responsible for your actions. If you're writing a cop story or a law story or even a kingdom story, the authorities could give immunity to someone. For the cop story, maybe the cop wants to stay on the right side of the law, but the cop can't catch the bad person within the law. So a cop who has enough strings to pull, idiom alert, for people to look the other way, idiom alert. Maybe that cop hires a bounty hunter or whatever to get the bad person. Maybe the bad person is in another country and the immunity is only if the bounty hunter gets back to the cop's country safely. There can be conditions to immunity. In law, a prosecutor decides who to charge with a crime. So they could offer immunity by looking the other way. They could offer immunity to certain people of the crime for testimony. And they can I didn't know this before watching The Lawyer, but they can tailor what immunity they give. Like in the Adelson case, they got Wendy Adelson to testify, but she was only given immunity for what she said in court. If she said anything anywhere else or they had any other evidence besides what was presented in court when she testified, they could still use that against her. So, some criminals get immunity so they don't get a life sentence. They get, jail with possibility of parole, or they don't get the death sentence, or, there's different ways that the prosecutors can give a limited immunity. So you could add that to your stories too. How much immunity? Now, I'm not in any way saying that we want such things to happen in real life. Yeah, we want testimony, and sometimes you have to give a little, but we may not want to be hiring bounty hunters to go do what the cops can't do. If there's in the kingdom, if you have the tax collector and he's a little abusive, which I think in the past they were. I don't know. I didn't live back then. But they could do certain things if you didn't pay the tax, and they were immune to any penalties. They didn't get in trouble for any of that. So, we may not want that to happen in real life. But as writers, we have many avenues for having the second definition of immunity play out in our stories. As writers, we may have to set aside our want or perception of what we think is justice. If we write stories that give a character or a group of characters immunity, we may have to set that aside and just write to get the point of the story out. Like, we've talked about a story having a theme, like in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. That theme is based on the death and resurrection of Christ. Okay, so if you want a theme to get a point across, then you would have to put your own emotions aside. During the witch trials, the law didn't prosecute anyone who burned a witch. You burned a witch, and there was no proof that they were a witch. You just said, they're a witch. Burn them. The witch burners had immunity. It didn't matter. Now, during another tumultuous time, people would accuse blacks of crimes, black men especially, and they would lynch them without a trial or proof of the crime. Those in law did nothing to the mobs that lynched many innocent black men. The lynchers had immunity. As writers, we need to look at things from the perspective of both sides. Now, that's not that we agree with it. Being a witch or black in those times would have been very scary. So as writers, we'd have to know how to put the fear that person had over there. But the people burning or lynching would have felt a certain immortality or arrogance, because those in law would never punish them for their crimes. Let's see if I think I talk about it. I'm going to read a little more, and then if not, I'll do a side trip. Okay, those with immunity could... Okay, yeah, here it is, right here. Those immune could even commit a crime and then say a black man did it. Okay, they could point. Say they saw the black man do it. And the black man at that time was helpless. I think I saw a movie that there was like a manufacturing place or whatever, and the owner's daughter worked there, and one of the white men stole some money. He raped and killed the daughter. They found the daughter dead, and he became the witness and said a black man did it. Well, the black man was lynched in this movie. I don't know if it was a drama or if it was a documentary or what kind of movie. But he just pointed. They took the thing. I think Green Mile also talks about not necessarily a lynching, but they didn't have the correct defense strategy. But that's why I said, as writers, we may have to put aside our feelings for what we feel is just. Because lynching that black man was not just. It was like very angering because, well, as viewers of the movie, we saw what happened. We knew it wasn't him. But if we want to write a good story, a good intriguing story, we need to give emotional connection to our readers. And that means our readers can hate the person that with the immunity for the injustice he or she causes. And, you know, those with immunity may never get their comeuppance. But if the writer of that movie, that drama or documentary or whatever it was, if that writer got into how unjust it was and how it wasn't right, he wouldn't have been able to portray the injustice that was done. I hope that helps you with understand me. Okay, now as writers, you could write historical fiction and include those things or these things. Or you can create an entirely new world with something similar. Many people feel the rich have certain amount of immunity because they can pay their way out of receiving justice. Kings or tyrants have immunity because they're not going to hold themselves responsible or accountable for killing someone or having someone killed for whatever reason. You know, king could be like, hey, you know, to his hired assassin or whatever. Hey, I hear through the grapevine that my brother is trying to get my throne, so go kill him. Okay. He goes to the brother's kingdom. He kills him. He comes back. Once he makes it back into the king's kingdom, he's immune. The king's not going to kill him because he saved his throne or whatever. But the people over in the other, and the rumor could be true, the rumor could be false. You know, who knows if the brother was trying to do that or not. But now that person is dead. So, leave a comment on a character in a show, book, or movie, or real life that has immunity and will not be held responsible for their actions. Our next term is cajole. And this is when the phone said, the last time, battery low. It scrolled across my screen. I was like, what? Anyway, our second term is cajole. Cajole was actually my word of the day on January 1st. I have a word of the day calendar that I have this year. And I looked it up in several other languages and I had fun with it. And I was surprised that they actually had that word in, because, you know, English has so many words because we borrow things from other people. So, cajole in English and as a verb means to persuade someone to do something by sustained coaxing or flattery or by using insincere compliments or promises. Now, I don't often give origin meanings, but this one is cute. The origin, which is a probably, not a definitely, the origin is probably a blend of two French words, meaning to chatter like a jaybird. And you must think that chatter like a jaybird is probably an idiom. And to lure into a cage or to put in jail. So imagine someone saying, please, 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 over and over, or saying, you know you want to, and them not shutting up until you just do the thing. Maybe you don't want to do it, but it's easier to do than to continue listening to him or her. At least it seems that way at the time. Now, I am by no means encouraging anyone to cajole another person, but as writers, we have a lot of different characters, and you might have an annoying character that just cajoles people all the time. Think for a minute. Maybe you're one character that is being cajoled, wouldn't go to a certain place if it weren't for the cajoling character to ask for a ride or to ask to go with them or whatever. And then in that other place, boom, something happens in the area or at that place to move the story along. So it could be a good something to, or it could be a good something to move the story along or a bad something to move the story along, but it can move your story. So sometimes if you're stuck in your story and you don't know what should I do, you could have like you can have a little kid do it, and they could cajole and they could go, and then all of a sudden, boom, stuff happens. I think, now that I'm thinking about this, I'd have to rewatch the movie. Beethoven, the first one. Like, the kids wanted the dad to investigate about Beethoven, and so they broke into the veterinarian and they found, I don't know, they found some clues. Then they went to that warehouse where they had all the dogs, and the kids were like, "Dad, you can do it. Dad, you can do it." That kind of I think that's kind of how it is. And they were telling him, "Close the door at the same time," and da-da-da, all this stuff. So I think that moved the story along to get to Beethoven's actual rescue. But like I said, I have to go watch that movie again. So leave a comment on the last time someone cajoled you into doing something. If you have children, I'm sure it wasn't too long ago. Now let's turn to your stories with a down soldier. First, remember that all works shared on the channel are copyright protected, so there is no worry. Send in your writings to writewithmykela@gmail.com, and I look forward to reading your stories on the channel. We've written on this 24 times. We started this story in season 3.1, episode 11. I will list the rest of the episodes in the details below. If you remember back to the first writing prompt, it was to imagine a soldier that came to after a big battle. And we went from there. And I told you could wake up on the battlefield and describe the battlefield. You could have woken up in an ambulance. A buddy could have dragged you to some ditch and then passed out with you, and you could have woken up in the ditch with your buddy. I don't know where you went. And we don't have a shared plot for this. But I hope you're having fun. I hope you have an intriguing protagonist and an active goal or problem, and you have high stakes or stakes of some kind, plus a ticking clock. And all of that is interrelated and building to your climax. These are the elements to a good story, along with some good editing. First draft is not a final draft. So pause the video, write a page or two, or at least a paragraph. A lot of writers aim for 500 words a day. That would be 3,500 words a week. I can easily do 3,000 words in a day. For me, I type about 1,000 words an hour. It depends on if I'm trying to flush a scene out in my mind or if I'm just typing. But if I'm typing, I could do 1,000 words an hour. So that's 3 hours, 3.5 hours. I could get 3,500 and meet my goal. So if you could spend, 3.5 hours a week on your writing, you could get that 500 words a day. Or maybe your goal is a time. I want to write on my stories 1 hour every day. So you're going to put 7 hours in. So maybe, and I'm not going to say that's going to be 7,000 words, because sometimes when I'm working on my books, I'm reading and editing. So you could count that time if you're doing a time instead of a word. But use this writing prompt to meet your own personal writing goal. Then come back and I will read what I wrote. Welcome back, writers. Now let me read what I wrote. Wavisthur suddenly straightened up. We must get to the court now. Vic and Thace straightened up. Then the whole ground shook. It shook so hard that each of them fell down to the ground. Come, we must hurry, said Wavisthur. I'm missing the ceremony. He struggled to stand and hurried off. Vic and Thace watched after him and saw him fall a few more times when the ground shook. She glanced around to her remaining group. Moll stood and lifted Sartla in his arms. Sartla held her bucket, and the bucket Vic and Thace had gotten for Moll's. Moss reached a hand down to help Lillian up, and then Vic and Thace. When the ground shook, the adults paused and braced themselves. Vic and Thace looked up at one point, and it seemed as though the sky was parting. She remembered they were in a tunnel, and she realized the ground they were on was rising. Vic and Thace gasped. Oh no, I think we are rising to be even with the ground above us. We won't be in the tunnel anymore. Let's hurry and find Kamek, and look out for Burdock. They ran a few steps and braced themselves, ran a few more steps. They finally made it to the barn, and Vic and Thace could see the real sky, and she could see the walls of the tunnel arc up like part of a dome, and the dome was sinking beyond the trees. Vic and Thace looked around and wondered which building Kipley would have brought Kamek to, and which building Wavisthur would call a court. Her eyes landed on a broad building with columns all along a front porch and stairs that spread the width of the building going up to the porch. She hoped the two places she was looking for was one and the same. The ground shook and she fell again. As she got up, she saw a slender man in the distance standing up. The man was running towards them. Vic and Thace called out, "Burdock, we're going to the court." She pointed. Lillian and Moss looked the direction she pointed, and they adjusted their path to the building. Sartla said, "Dad, my rabbit! We have to get him!" Moss looked at the barn. He felt the ground shake, and he saw the sky seemingly slide down beyond the trees just outside the city. He didn't know what was going on. Let's find out what's going on first. Sartla wiggled to get down. She took off running, but she soon fell as the ground shook. Moss lifted her to her feet as he shouted to Vic and Thace that he would be there as soon as possible. Sartla ran on as Moss gathered the food that had dropped out of the buckets, and then he headed after Sartla. Kamek had said some words from the book after he placed the amulet in the case. The ground shook before he finished reading. Dad? Started Kipley. Are you sure the stone goes there? Kamek glanced at Kipley and then back down. Let me finish reading and then we can close the case. Things will settle down. Kamek read faster and the whole building shook. Pieces from high up fell. Stone fell off of some of the statues. Jules pulled on Kipley's sleeve and pointed to some of the statues. Kipley could see faces and colored clothing. Dad? He said as he looked around to all the statues. Kamek rushed his words, and then he quickly reached up and pulled the lid down on the case. Then they heard Wavisthur saying words. Kamek whirled around, and he saw Wavisthur's arms in the air. Wavisthur walked quickly. Kamek glanced down to the book. He held the glass cover. He had held the glass over the next passage, and he found the words Wavisthur was reciting. Once Wavisthur finished, the ladies were coming in, and shortly behind them was Moss and Sartla with her rabbit. Sartla ran to Kipley and took his hand. My rabbit and I want you to hide us like you did before. Kipley looked around. Wavisthur motioned to the throne. There is a place beneath the throne. He looked at Kamek. I would have never guessed you were eager for battle. What do you mean? Asked Kamek. A general that had been stoned entered. They come. He looked at Kamek. Sit up, my king. I will get your horse ready. Kamek looked at Wavisur. Wavisur motioned to the amulet. The amulet enables the city to return to the land. Of course, there is an incantation as well. He motioned to the book. Sartla tugged on Kipley's hand. Kipley looked at Jules and then the ladies. He pulled Sartla up the step to the throne, and Jules was by his side. They looked for some mechanism. Soon the throne moved back. Kipley looked at his father. Kamek motioned him on. Go on. Most and I will fight. Most said, I've never fought on horseback before. Burdock started up the steps. Well, I will stay with the ladies in case they need protection. He picked up a torch from the corner of the throne stand and headed down the revealed stairs. Kipley and Jules followed with Sartla and her rabbit. Vic and Thace motioned to Lillian, and Lillian followed the group down the stairs. Vic and Thace looked after Kamek. Come back to us. Come back safe. I don't want to have to mend a lot of wounds. I think I said that a little bit wrong. Okay, Vic and Thace looked at Kamek. Come back to us. Come back safe. I don't want to have to mend a lot of wounds. Kamek smiled at her, and they both blushed a little. Kamek turned to where Wavisur was showing him the armor was. Okay, writers, that is what I'm adding today. The word count was a little over 900 words. I don't think that was right. I think that was the other script. I think it was like 1178. But okay, 900 words, 1178, no big deal. Leave a comment on if you were Wavisur, would you have thought that Kamek would have placed the amulet and said the incantation? Or would he wait for the group to be with him? Or wait for something else? You know, Wavisur doesn't know what Kamek's father told him, and I think we talked about Kamek's father telling him to do something, and he didn't want to burden Kipley with that. So, leave a comment. Now, leave a comment on Sartla wanting her rabbit. If you were Moss, would you have gone to the barn with Sartla to get the rabbit? Or would you have just said, I don't know what's going on, let's find out first. Let's go stay with our friends, stay with the people. Leave a comment on where did the general come from? And leave a comment on what you think will happen next. Join me Friday for Princess of Norwin and Staggerguard. Join me Tuesday for a little jargon and adding to your story with a setting, which is actually my favorite one right now. That I'm as a writing prompt. Leave a comment on which story is your favorite so far. It could be your favorite that you're writing. It could be a favorite on the channel or a favorite you've read. Also, leave a comment on what you are currently reading. I'm currently reading Assassin's Apprentice by Robin Hobb. I'm enjoying it, but it seems like it's a book for males. It starts off with the life of a 6-year-old boy and drags through quite a bit of it. I think part of that is to make him a what's the term? We just used this term the other day, where you could a sympathetic assassin, so that you could sympathize with the assassin, or you could, kind of get his story. So I will update you later on how much I enjoy or recommend that book. I'm also reading Still Life by Louise Penny. So far, this book is intriguing, and I have read more than what I've just written about. But anyway, I've just barely started. I'm like on chapter 4 now, and it is a murder mystery. One intriguing part is that I met the person who was murdered, and the person was murdered in chapter 2. So in chapter 1, I met the person. I met all the people around the person in chapter 1. So all the friends. You meet all of her friends, and so who would murder the person is a big question. So we'll have to see. The second chapter, the cop comes in, and I'm not really sure who the main character is. I'm kind of enjoying this because she's giving views of every, like the different friends she's doing a view of. You know, you have Peter and Clara, you have Ruth, you have the Jane who was killed, you have the cop, you have his new deputy in training or whatever, investigator in training. So she's giving a perspective from all of these people, and this is how I write. But when I had my coach was like, one person, one perspective, no more. And so I've tried to tailor my writing to more of that, but that's not how I see the world. I see the world as having lots of people, not just one person, one hero, one do-it-all. Because I don't really think that, I mean, Superman's a hero, yeah. Batman's a hero, yeah. But in everyday life, I think it takes more than one person a lot of times to resolve things. So that's another reason I'm enjoying Louise Penny's book. I also started, and I don't even know the last name of this one. My brother-in-law got us a subscription to Audible for this year, for Christmas. And it's because my husband has been doing some audiobooks. I told you about that. He's done Great Expectations, Pride and Prejudice, and right now I think he's doing Moby Dick. I think he did The Christmas Carol, but I don't know if he got through it or if he changed. Anyway, I think he's doing Moby Dick right now. So, when he used the credit, he got a stack of like 15 classics. And so I started Crime and Punishment. And I cannot tell you the author. If you Google it, it'll come up. Dovstoy or Dovstoy. It's like a Russian name. And a lot of the book has Russian, like it's translated to English, I think. And it still has the Russian names. And so I'm in, I think, the middle of chapter 3 or the middle of chapter 4, because it tells you before it starts at chapter 3 and then it reads 4. I know I'm in the middle somewhere of a chapter. So I'm doing that audiobook. I'm not sure I would recommend it or not. I'll have to get deeper into the story. And it's an audiobook, so if you don't have a lot of reading time, this is how a lot of people read nowadays. This is how my coach was reading when she was my coach. She says she did like 500 books a year, and it's like, okay, that's a lot. That's more than one a day. But she was doing audiobooks. And my brother-in-law, he travels a lot, so he does a lot of audiobooks. And I have another friend that does audio. There's a lot of people doing audiobooks. So if that works for you, then think about getting that subscription. Leave a comment on if you recommend a book or an author. Also, have you read any classics that you would recommend? And I am thinking of adding a day to my channel. And what I will do if I add it is I will read a classic and then we will discuss each chapter together. I haven't sought to get permission to read on the channel, so I won't be reading the chapter, but I'll do it like a book discussion and discuss the chapter. If I add this, it will be after March 14th, and it will be Wednesdays. And the first book I will be reading will be the 1984 by George Orwell. Right now, I'm a little behind on the channel, and like I told you, this is like take 5 or 6 for this video. So we'll see if I get there. But that is the book that I plan to do first. I may go see if I can find an audio book copy and do it that way. That would be easier, because I'm reading 2 books and I have the audio book of the 3rd book, and There we go. So anyway, leave a comment on a book you recommend. Don't forget to visit my website by Mykela.com. Read some character bios. Send your writings and chapters to writewithmykela@gmail.com. Leave comments on your favorite characters. So earlier I said favorite books, favorite authors. Now I'm saying favorite characters. Lots of comments. Build our conversations. If you hit the like and subscribe and the bell, then we will continue to write together, and other people will have a higher chance of finding this video and this channel, since your likes will push the video out to a greater audience. Thank you for joining me today. I really appreciate your participation. If you know someone who would like this video, please share it with them. This is Mykela with Write with Mykela. Bye for now.